Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know that, unfortunately, this is the beginning of a long and painful conversation about issues that should have been settled long ago and about perspectives that should have mattered long ago. One of my colleagues just talked about listening to folks. I am a civilian. I did not serve in the military. And so I take a lot of time to listen to active duty service members, especially women. And no, women do not, I don't speak for all women in the military, but many of the women I have spoken to over the years do not feel welcome. Many of the women in the military believe that I've spoken to do not believe that their perspective matters. And if we do not hear them, if we do not honor them, if we do not govern with them and others in mind, then we should not be complaining that we have a recruitment problem. We should absolutely accept that we will continue to have recruitment problems and that we will have a less diverse military, one that does not adequately reflect the diversity of our nation. It is incredible to me that we are spending time not just on this issue. We just voted on an amendment that rewards service members who refuse to follow orders on taking vaccinations. It really is embarrassing and it's appalling. And I look forward to getting past all of these really embarrassing and appalling amendments so that we can talk about things that really matter. I yield
Further
back.
discussion. Ms. Kiggans is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I know that this is just the beginning of a discussion on a couple bills that have similar themes, but I just wanted to make a few points. And I really prided myself on sitting on Armed Services Committee and would tell my friends, it's great, it's a bipartisan committee, we agree on so much. I will have to frequently turn around and say, gosh, I agree with the other side 100% of what just came out of their mouths. But today seems different, and we're spending so much time talking about an issue that divides us, when I really am wondering, where our focus is right now, and when our priority should be on national security and on China and on warfighting and how many ships we have and the quality of life issues for our soldiers and sailors and airmen. And so it's upsetting and it makes me sad. And the issue for me, it's about equality, and I heard a couple of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle speak about being a female and a woman in naval aviation and in the Navy in general. And so I was a bit of a minority as well, flying helicopters. But so you know what I did? I showed up. I worked twice as hard as some of my male peers. I showed up early. I studied harder. I did more than what was expected. And I was treated extremely equally. I can count maybe 1 to 2 times in the entirety of my 10-year career that I was treated very well and treated as an equal. And I took a lot of pride in that, but it was a lot of work for me. So I did that every day that I got up. I worked hard and I did the job. I did the job the same, if not better. And I think of the people I flew with, and I don't know what their political ideation was. I don't know what their religion was. I have to really think twice even to remember kind of what their race was, because and their gender. I didn't care. I knew that we were there to do a mission. We were there to do what our country asked, and we tip of the spear. So I got in a helicopter and I did what my country asked every single day. I did it with people from all backgrounds, all races, all nationalities, all religions, and I did it proudly. So I'm thankful for that time. I hope that we can get back to the discussion about what we really need to be focused on Armed Services Committee, and that's to defending the nation, to making sure, again, that our servicemen and women are well protected and well cared for. With that, I yield back.
I recognize my friend from California. I do want to make the point. This is a very bipartisan committee. We don't agree on everything, but think of all the things we've covered already today with near unanimity. So I hate also that we get bogged down on some social issues in this committee every year, but they are very small percentage of the issues that this committee deals with, and we should always be mindful of that we're very fortunate to get to serve on a committee that not only gets a big product done every year, but we do it in a
I
bipartisan
just really want to
fashion.
agree with that. You don't argue over the stuff that you agree on. So that's just sort of the way it plays out. But there is, I don't know how many pages the bill is this year, but it's working its way up there. There's a whole lot of stuff that we agreed on. We're trying to resolve the stuff that we don't agree on. It's a robust debate, and that's what we're having. So I don't want anyone to get the impression that we don't have the bipartisan committee that the gentlelady just described. We do. We just have disagreements, and we argue about them.
Yep. Work through it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Having served in the Marine Corps, the one thing that I was always very proud of was the fact that we used to pride ourselves as Marines. You know, you're not a black Marine, you're not a Hispanic Marine, you're not a white Marine. We're all green. That was sort of our motto in boot camp and beyond. And quite frankly, during my tenure, I didn't experience a whole lot of racism. I did experience some biasness. And I think that's the issue here. Some people feel that you have to be racist, which not all are, to have biases. And those biases permeate our institutions. My good friend, Representative Bergman, who I respect very much, Brigadier General, I respect Mr. Bergman very much, but I'm going to ask him a question. And I think I'll get a straight answer because that's how much respect I have from him. Whether we call it racism or not, there's a whole lot of biases that come with where we come from, how we're raised and what have you. You don't have to be racist to have those biases, but they permeate, and the outcome, it could be perceived by many as just outright racism. Mr. Bergman, is there not biases, natural biases that we've seen at all levels of ranks in our beloved Marine Corps? I yield to you.
Are you yielding to me?
Yes, sir.
Well, first of all, Salud, Marines are never known for their math. So while I am a nod duck, the number was 3, not 1, as far as the stars, just so you know. Okay. But, you know, in a very serious vein, because Salud and I can have this conversation even without adult beverages. And the point is, I'd like to use your term bias. What kind of car do you drive?
A good one.
No, model, manufacturer.
Honda.
Honda.
Civic.
Okay. I drive a Ford. Now you have a bias for a Honda. I have a bias for a Ford. But that's normal. That's normal. But when I say to you, you're stupid for buying a Honda, you should only buy Fords, then that verges on prejudice. And what we're talking about here is prejudice, because we all have biases. Let's face it. A long time ago, when I was hauling the
Mr.
grunts
Bergman,
around.
can I claim
wait,
my
hold
time
on.
back?
I'll finish up right here.
Okay.
I'll finish up. Is that we had a mutual, as a 46 pilot in Vietnam, we had a mutual admiration society with the grunts. We thought they were crazy for getting out of them, and they thought we were crazy for flying them. So I yield back.
Thank you. That was somewhat of an answer, but so let me get to the point. We all have biases that permeate and end up having certain outcomes. And whether it's in promotions or what have you, that's what we're talking about here. Dealing with some of those biases head on and why we have those biases. I think at the root of and the heart of the matter, that's what we're talking about. And, you know, there's some people that were born on third base and they think they hit a triple. And they carry that bias with them that, hey, everybody else should have hit a triple, but they were born on third base. And again, when it comes to promotions, we see the higher echelons of our military not represent the rest of our country. Some people will say, hey, well, they're not qualified. Others will say, well, I think you could look at some of those biases. And whether you call it racism or biases, that's really what we're talking about here. You could define it however you want, but the end result is that somebody is injured in that process. Mr. Chair, I yield back.
Mr. Carvajal's statement, because I think he really hit the crux of an issue here. I don't disagree with any of the statements that my colleagues that are in support of this are saying. I don't think they're prejudiced. I don't think they think their friends or their colleagues were prejudiced. But a lot of this study came from, and I'll give you an analogy since we were talking about cars, about redlining. This is where this came from, a lot of this theory, because there were institutions making financial decisions based on things that on the surface seemed they didn't have any prejudice. But there was unintended results. And the word unintended, I think, is what Mr. Carbajal was talking about. Because of decisions that issue by issue look to be fair right down the line, whole areas of cities couldn't get mortgages, couldn't get financing, couldn't get out. People didn't have the opportunity. And it wasn't intended. And so what Mr. Carbajal was talking about was exactly that. And I think there's a value in decision makers in any line of work, military, banking, anywhere, to be aware and have their eyes open to the fact that this can happen even though it's unintentional. It can be unintentional, but it can still have real effects. So I think this has a value. I think you hit it right on the head of the issue, and I just wanted to follow up and tell you I think you brought a lot to that discussion of insight as to exactly what we're talking about. Now yield back.
That's a good note to end on. We've had 22 speakers. I think we've thoroughly discussed this. So with that, if there's no further discussion, the questions on adoption of the amendment offered by Mr. Gates. So many as in favor will say aye. 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 Opposed will say no. No. And I bet there's going to be a request for a recorded vote. That's what I thought was coming. The amendment is adopted and a recorded vote is requested.